I remember when I was 12 years old and I was wearing a skirt when a boy asked me to reach up to get something from the top shelf in science lab so that he and his friends could look up my skirt. I didn't understand this at the time, and I remember asking why and how they all laughed. At 14, while on a school trip, the boys peeped into the girls' showers to see us naked. After that, we had to stand guard for each other to make sure that it didn't happen again. I remember being pinched on the bum at 15, boys talking about my boobs at 16, grown men catcalling on the street, the accidental brush against my breasts in crowded places, and so many other moments of sexual harassment, objectification, and sexism that I encountered throughout my life as a female. The funny thing is that I am considered one of the lucky ones. Compared to many other women and girls, my experiences with the above were mild. But it was the fact that I felt lucky that led me to realize that as a society, we see all of the above and worse as part of the female experience. Let that sink in. As a society, we actually can't imagine a world in which women and girls don't have to deal with all of that crap. We have subconsciously accepted that the objectification of the female body is inevitable, that sexual harassment is part of every woman's story, and that sexism is the norm. Why? Because we have been brought up to believe that boys and men are silly and immature and simply can't help themselves, that this is a genetic disposition, and so there's very little point in trying to change it. And this narrative can be found everywhere: movies, music, ads, literature. It's become the premise in which our society operates. It impacts the language we use, education, how we bring up boys versus girls, messaging and advertisements, and it even affects our laws and legal systems. That is why when the boys peeped on us on the showers all those years ago, we didn't even report it. And the reason was beyond us thinking that no one would do anything about it. We basically thought that this was just part of life, that part of our existence as girls meant that our objectification, sexualization, and harassment, or worse, was inevitable. And so the only thing that we could do was learn ways to protect ourselves. And I remember so many moments of internalizing the feeling of embarrassment and shame, asking myself if I did something wrong, what I could have done differently. I remember all the protection mechanisms that I adopted, laughing it off, pretending like I didn't notice, I didn't care, like I didn't get it, convincing myself that it was really a compliment. It was the only way to deal with all of it. And it was only as I got older that I realized that I did all those things because I had zero expectations that boys would or could change, or that it was even okay for me to expect it, because I didn't see anybody else expecting it, because boys will be boys, right? But what if all of that is a big fat lie? What if it is not a genetic default, but rather a learned behavior that is encouraged by social norms? In other words, what if it is changeable? You know, people always focus on educating girls to be strong and smart, know their rights, etc., and all of that is great. But very few people focus their efforts on boys. Very few realize that in order for things to really change, what we need to do is educate boys. Boys need to know that they are accountable for their actions, that there are consequences for bad behaviors. And we as a society need to expect more from them. There are plenty of boys and men out there who do not harass women, who do not objectify women's bodies, and who are not, how do I put it, assholes. They are proof that this is possible. And imagine what would happen if boys were taught from an early age about respect and consent and equality. The world would literally be unrecognizable. And I know this feels like a massive goal, and you might actually be thinking, yeah, but where do we even start? So while I think that education and schools can play a massive part in this, I urge parents not to rely on anyone else to do the work. Education starts at home. I urge parents of boys in particular to make this a mission. I urge you to do what you can to ensure future generations do not have to accept this type of behavior. As parents, we have the ability to shape the world of tomorrow, or at the very least to contribute towards making it safer, kinder, and more equal for our children. I would have liked to believe that in 2023 we're in a better place, but sadly, I am discovering that this is not the case. Young girls today face similar and even worse behaviors and attitudes from their male friends and peers, and frankly, it is not okay. No matter what your kids and young people pick up in the real world on social media, etc., and other outlets, if we parents install in them a strong foundation based on love, kindness, equality, and respect, if we call them up on their bad behavior and not let them off the hook when they cross those boundaries, if we hold them accountable for their actions and ongoingly communicate all of this with them, then we can plant the seeds that will change the world for the better. The end.